First installment of what I'm going to call Tech Talk with Tivis. So this is going to be a compilation of my ramblings, a little bit of automotive or mechanical theory from my point of view, and a documentation of what it takes for me to keep my toys running out there so I can go fishing, go ripping around, enjoying myself. So there's professionals out there, just like there is in any industry, that can take care of this stuff. But I think anything that you consider a toy or something that you enjoy using, I think there's a certain pride and ownership that comes with at least understanding your machinery a little bit. Some of this stuff I'm working on, I'm learning along the way too. So if I say something wrong or there's something that you know to be different as far as information, please feel free to reach out to me. Let me know what you think, because I think part of this is a learning process. And there's tons of people that know more than me, but this is my mechanical ramblings. So today we're going to go over what a compression test is and why you might want to do one. So what a compression test is it allows you to look inside of an engine without actually having to physically take everything apart. And this is not a foolproof 100% way to know what is going on inside, but it's a good indicator. So what a compression test is it measures the amount of compression pressure inside of any internal combustion engine. The piston that travels up and down inside of a tube, okay? And the amount of pressure that piston can apply to the top of the tube is your compression rating. As an engine is used and as time goes by, things start to wear, and the compression will slowly start to decrease over time. Nice new engine, all the tolerances are really tight, it's got good compression. As time and use goes on, maybe some negligence as far as changing oil or lubrication goes, starts to wear out a little bit, you get metal on metal contact. What a compression test does for you, and I would suggest doing this to anything you're looking at buying, it for cars, trucks, snowmobiles, ATVs, lawnmowers, anything you're looking at buying that's an internal combustion engine. It gives you a look inside of the engine without physically having to take everything apart. So you get an idea of what kind of wear or how the person may have treated this engine. So we'll go over the pieces that you need for it. So here are the tools I'm going to need for the compression test on the snowmobile here. Now, depending on what you're looking at, this tool set may be a little bit different, but we have the basics here. You need to have a spark plug socket to take the existing spark plugs out of whatever you're looking to test, a ratchet. This is a compression tester. And what the compression tester does is it's got a one-way valve in here. So as that cylinder pushes pressure up to this gauge, it won't allow that pressure to fall back through here and dissipate. And that's what gives us our reading. This is your adapter to actually screw into the hole that your spark plug would normally go into. These are our spark plugs that we took out of the snowmobile, but I'll show you how you want to do this part. Now, here's one thing that makes a spark plug socket different than your normal everyday socket. If you can see in there, there's actually a rubber insert at the base of that socket. So what that does is it doesn't allow you to damage the porcelain area of this spark plug when you take it out. Make sure you have the correct size. You don't want to round this out. Attach your ratchet, take it out. Now, a little word of caution here. If you're checking the compression after the engine has been running, these are going to be hot. So I would suggest waiting a little while, letting things cool off, or wearing a set of gloves. Luckily for me, this engine's nice and cool. Okay, here's one crucial piece of the compression test, okay? This is the spark plug adapter for your compression tester. Now, one thing you want to make absolutely certain is that if you thread this into the cylinder head, that this is a nice tight fit, okay? You can see down here in the back, this is another thread size for different applications. So make sure you're using the correct thread for your application. It should be a nice snug fit. There should be no play in there when you screw it in. The other thing you want to consider is how far the engagement is on your spark plug, okay? This is for a snowmobile, so luckily we have a lot of engagement. So you can see the shoulder area here and here where these would bottom out against the cylinder head. You want to make sure that you're not threading this compression tester any farther than the spark plug normally would go. Because what could happen, we'll pretend that this is the piston. You thread the compression tester in, you go to turn the engine over and the piston comes up. We don't want it to contact the compression tester at all. That could potentially damage the motor. Two things to remember when you're doing this. Make sure you're using the correct thread and it's nice and snug, and that you don't screw it in farther than the engagement that the spark plug normally has. That'll save you a lot of headache, and I have done it before, so don't ruin your stuff or someone else's that you haven't bought yet. So now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna thread our compression tester in there, and I'm gonna give it a good 4 or 5 turns, and I'm comfortable with that. Now what we can do is we can attach our gauge to the top of this. We have our compression tester threaded in, we have our gauge someplace that we can see it while the engine is turning over. Now, the one thing I will tell you is that depending on your application, you're gonna have to do things a little bit differently. So now, because I'm doing this on a snowmobile, I'm gonna actually have to physically turn this engine over, but in my opinion, you're gonna wanna give it a 4 count if you're using an electric starter. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4, because that will be enough cycles of that piston coming up and down inside that cylinder to give you an average for the amount of compression it's going to produce per cycle. So, without any further ado, let me pull the sled over here. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll come over here. So I see about 100 PSI there. So as far as this application goes, that's not super good, but it's not terrible yet. So we want to make sure we repeat this same process for the second cylinder also. Something to also consider when you're doing this, you don't want to have the compression gauge laying someplace where it could potentially get caught up in the engine or anything that's turning over. Okay, so that's pretty close to the other cylinder. And this is what I was referencing as far as consistency from side to side. 100 here, and also it's probably 98 pounds, but very close to 100. So the wear from this side to that side is even. So even though this compression is what I would consider low, it's worn evenly, which means that the engine is just naturally getting tired. There's not a specific issue with either cylinder. So what will doing a compression test give you for information if you're looking at purchasing something? So if I was just to look at this sled from the outside, this is the first time I ever saw it, I'm thinking about purchasing it, and those are the readings I got. I don't hate it, but I'm not happy with it because I think it is going to need to rebuild probably sooner than later. So if you're someone who's mechanically inclined like myself, that's not the scariest idea, but it does give me some ability to haggle on price. It gives you the ability to get a little insight into what you're potentially getting into. Future work down the road, if you're looking into buying projects and you're someone like me, this is one of the most crucial things that you can do. And that was Tech Talk with Tivis. I hope you learned something from this today. I would suggest that anytime you're looking at purchasing something, you start using any tools you have available to you. It might end up saving you some money in the long run. I'm not a professional mechanic, but I do a lot of wrenching in the garage. It's one of my hobbies. So I just try to share this information as I think it's relevant to people. So if you enjoyed this, let me know. Appreciate the support.